like to go home.
Oh, okay. So you guys want me to talk for 10 minutes or talk for 5 and take questions? Your call. All right. Tell me when I hit 5 minutes. All right, anyway, I'll give you the short and sweet. But so I'm Peter Schiff. I'm running for United States Senate. And, you know, I think this is a real pivotal time in our nation's history. I really do. I think we are on the edge of the economic abyss. And, you know, I want to be in Washington, you know, when this unravels. I think that the economic crisis began in 2008. It didn't end then. And unfortunately, the U.S. government has done everything wrong since 2008 to compound this problem and to guarantee the crisis that I've been writing about, predicting, talking about on television for the last several years, that crisis is in fact going to be a reality. You know, the politicians are telling us that what they've done has improved, right? That the economy is getting better. It's not getting better. Okay? Gold was up $30 an ounce today. It's at a new all-time record high. Who knows, it might be up $100 an ounce tomorrow. The economy is not getting better when the price of gold is spiraling out of control. People are losing confidence in fiat currencies, and for good reason. You know, all that we've done since the financial crisis began is print money, bail out companies that should have failed, expand the government to a record proportions. The government is now spending close to $4 trillion a year. We're running $1.5 trillion a year deficits, and it's only going to get worse. And the only reason that GDP is going up is because the government is spending all that money, and because Americans are spending money. But we don't have any money to spend. We're borrowing it. The debt is growing much faster than the GDP. That means we're getting poorer. We are spending our way to economic oblivion. And now I was on CNBC just before I came here, and somebody was telling me, but what if the U.S. economy grows? And I said, well, it can't grow. I said, what if elephants sprout wings? Could they fly? The U.S. economy can't possibly grow with what the government is doing. The only way the economy can grow is if the government shrinks. The government has to get out of the way and empower the free market. We need fewer regulations, not more regulations. We need the government to spend less so that individuals can invest more. We need to build up our productive capacity. We need to invest in capital. We need to build factories so that we can make things, so that we can employ people. You can't have an economy based on spending borrowed money. We can't have an economy based on borrowing money from Japan to buy products made in China, you know, while our trade deficit grows and we throw more Americans out of work. That doesn't work. I think we're headed for this real economic crisis. We're going to have a currency crisis sometime in the next several years. The dollar is not just going to go down, it's going to free fall, and prices are going to go through the roof. The price of food is going to go through the roof, the price of energy, the price of clothing, and that is the real cost of the bailouts and the stimulus. Washington is telling us that there's no cost, that there is a free lunch, that we don't have to pay for this. It's going to cost a fortune. It's not just going to be the rich who are going to pay. It's going to be average, everyday Americans, people living in Connecticut who have savings, who have a pension, who think they're going to get a Social Security benefit when they retire, who have cash value life insurance or annuities, who are working for wages. All that is going to get wiped out. The cost of living is going to explode. You're going to see maybe, 50 to 100 years worth of inflation happen in just a few short years. And prices, people aren't going to recognize the price level. That is the consequence. That is how we all get stuck for the bill, because the value of our money collapses because the government is spending it. I want to go to Washington and try my best to stop this process from going to completion. The only thing we can do is if we can stop the government dead in its tracks from spending money right now, slash government spending right now, not in the future, repealing as many regulations as we can, as quickly as we can, that have so impeded the free market, that have distorted risk-taking and capital allocations, that have turned us from the most productive economy in the world to the most indebted economy in the world. Instead of flooding the world with high-quality, low-cost manufacturing goods, we now flood the world with our IOUs as we import everything that we used to make. That has to come to an end. Right? But it can't come to an end until we turn the government around, until we stop the spending, until we allow interest rates to rise. We can't have interest rates at zero. No one's going to save money if interest rates are at zero. We can't have a sound dollar with interest rates at zero. We have to let them go up, and we have to let the financial firms go bankrupt. They're leveraged up to the hilt. We have to keep, the only reason we're keeping interest rates low is to keep Goldman Sachs in business. We can't run an economic policy to benefit a few people on Wall Street who are taking home multi-million-dollar bonuses. It's destroying the country. So if you send me to Washington, I will put a stop to it. I will filibuster the next attempt to increase the national debt ceiling. I will not let them raise the debt ceiling. If I can find 40 other senators to stand with me, then the deficit spending stops with my election, and we force the government to cut spending. They can't raise taxes because I'll filibuster that too. All they can do is cut, and they're going to have to take a meat hook to the government. They're going to have to abolish entire agencies and departments, slash spending. That's the only way out of this mess. And I don't know any other candidates who are really going to do that. People will talk about it, but I'm actually going to do it. I have no business to go to Washington other than to do what the career politicians refuse to do. They don't want to make the hard cuts because they don't want to jeopardize their own reelection. I couldn't care less if I get reelected. In fact, I'm not even going to try. One term is all I want. In fact, one term is, I think, all I have. If I can't get this job done in 6 years, it's done. There's nothing, we can't save it. The dollar will collapse, and we will go through a depression that will be much worse than anything our grandparents lived through in the 1930s, because it'll be an inflationary depression. And if you want to know what that looks like, you got to take a trip over to Zimbabwe, because it's not pretty. Anyway, let me answer any questions you have about my campaign, where I stand on the issues, my strategy to win, whatever you got.
Peter Schiff.
Yes.
I found this out, I don't know how true it is, this week here. The House and the Senate voted themselves a 3.5% increase, wage increase.
Yeah, I hear
Is
that.
true?
Yeah, I heard that, but it doesn't take effect, I guess, until after the next election. But they should be,
November.
yeah, but they should be cutting their pay. In fact, what we should do is abolish all the pension benefits and all the health care benefits for every member of Congress. They've done such a lousy job. They've compromised our future. Why should we reward them?
No,
And I don't.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I don't think people should go to Washington to collect pensions and cash in. There are a lot of people that enter politics broke and they leave rich. That's not the way to do it. You should make your money in the private sector, not in the public sector. And you don't, peddle your influence once you get out. A lot of these guys, once they leave office, they make a fortune lobbying their former colleagues to get special deals for the people who pay them. That has to stop. We got to get rid of the career politicians. Nobody should have politics as a career. It should be a public service, like jury duty or joining the Army for a tour of duty. You go to Washington, you sacrifice, you spend some time, and then you leave. I don't want people doing it for a living. That's why the country's in such a mess.
Now, there will be also, I understand, no increase in the Social Security for this coming January, the COLA increase, but they're gonna take the $20 billion that they were supposed to go to the Social Security recipients and give themselves a medical, medical insurance package.
Well, the way the government is trying to default on Social Security is by lying about inflation. That's their secret plan. You lie about inflation. The government comes up with a CPI, which is some bogus indicator. The way they do it, it's not real. They have hedonic adjustments. They have substitutions. If something went up in price, they don't count it. It's a gimmick. And so what they don't want to do is they want to let inflation wipe out the value of Social Security benefits, which is going to happen. People are going to get nothing, because Social Security is broke right now. There's no way the government can make the payments. So the government doesn't want to acknowledge that they're broke, so the government wants to just default through inflation. I don't want them to do that. I want to try to save the benefits for the people who really need them, but we've got to cut them for a lot of people who don't, because there is no money there. It was a scam from day one. Every nickel that they've ever collected in Social Security taxes was spent a long time ago. There is no money there. The only way they can get it is the way Bernie Madoff get it, to try to find new people to pay off the existing retirees. But the money's not there. The people, Americans don't earn enough to pay the benefits. And if we try to raise Social Security taxes again, the way we did in 1981, the last time we were in this mess, no one's going to be here at the tax. People are going to leave. People, I go to these meetings and people want to talk about immigration. I'm more worried about immigration. I'm more worried about our taxes and spending and regulation chasing people out of the country, chasing the capital out of the country, chasing labor out of the country, chasing the best and the brightest, the type of people that we want here. Those are the people that are going to leave this country if we try to tax them anymore. Yes.
May I ask what field of expertise you're in?
Yeah, I own a brokerage firm, Euro Pacific Capital, and I do investment banking, I do retail brokerage, I do asset management, I have a couple of mutual funds. I mean, my whole background has been kind of macroeconomics, and I invest from that prism. And so for the past decade, I've mainly been playing defense for my clients, trying to protect myself from all the mistakes Washington is making. Everything that the Federal Reserve has done, everything that Congress has done to undermine the value of our money, to destroy our economy with taxes and regulation. That's why I got a lot of my clients in gold. That's why my clients are invested in China. You know, I'm trying to protect myself from these policies. But the policies are now so bad and so destructive that as an American, I can't take it. I want to try to go to Washington and do something about it, instead of just trying to make a buck off it.
Why wasn't something done from your field, all these people in investment and things? They must have seen this coming way before the average person saw it, since you were invested into the
Most of them were too busy making money off of it to realize that there was a mania. I mean, I wrote a book called Crash Proof, How to Profit from the Economic Collapse, coming economic collapse in 2006, came out in 2007. I was on TV every week from 2005 to 2008, CNBC, Bloomberg, Fox. I was a token bear. They called me Dr. Doom. I was talking about a collapse in the housing market that was coming, the bankruptcy of the financials, the bankruptcy of Freddie and Fannie. I was saying all these things were going to happen. We're going to have the greatest recession since the Great Depression, 10% unemployment. Nobody believed me. People laughed at it. You know, so hardly anybody in Wall Street saw this coming. You know, and it's all the same people who didn't see it coming who are now convinced that the problem's been solved. And because they never understood the problem. See, they thought the economy was great when the real estate bubble was inflating. I knew it was a mirage. I knew we weren't creating real wealth. We were creating debt, and we were pretending that rising real estate prices and rising stock prices were the same thing as real wealth. They weren't. I was more concerned with the liabilities, not these phony assets, and we've made the same mistake again, except now our liabilities are growing even faster, but you know what? We're not even getting houses out of the deal. At least in a real estate bubble, we got nice houses. In the stock market bubble, we got a few decent companies. This is a government bubble. All we're getting is more bureaucracy, more government, and no one's going to get any benefit out of that except the people who work for government and directly derive a check. But the rest of us are getting screwed. Yeah.
What do you think about the decriminalization of drugs? Do you have a view on that?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think, first of all, that drug laws are not the federal government's power. There's nothing in the Constitution that authorizes the federal government to legislate what drugs are legal and are not legal. That power is left for the states. So it's something that should be done on a state level. I think if the federal government wants to do something about drugs coming across the border, that's okay. But if somebody in Connecticut, for example, wants to grow marijuana in their backyard and smoke it, it's none of the federal government's business, right? It's up to the state of Connecticut. It's not a federal issue. Let the state of Connecticut decide. Personally, I think drug laws do a lot more harm than good. I think something like 90% of the crime in this country is committed by drug addicts who are stealing to afford illegal drugs, but if they were legal, they would be a lot less expensive. And I know that there's, it's now a crime problem. The place in this country, do you know where drugs are the most rampant in the United States? Where they're used the most, the highest per capita? In prisons. So if the government can't control drug use in a prison where they have armed guards and fences, how can they do it in a free country? It's impossible. And during Prohibition, alcohol consumption actually went up. There were more speakeasies during Prohibition than bars before Prohibition. And of course, what did Prohibition create? Organized crime. And then when alcohol was legalized, where did they move? Narcotics. So I think it's creating organized crime. It's turned our inner cities into war zones. We've screwed up a lot of the Latin American countries. We've wasted a lot of money. And there's probably more people doing drugs because they're illegal than if they were legal. And instead of having pushers, you had doctors. Like, what if you had to get a prescription, for drugs, and the doctor tried to talk you out of it instead of a pusher trying to get you into it. So, but I mean, this is not my priority to try to get in there. But I do think that this is an example where the government does more harm than good. They're legislating with their hearts and not their heads. They don't think about the consequences. Everybody can say, yeah, drugs are bad. I don't do any drugs, right? And I don't want my kids doing drugs. But just because drugs are bad, think, okay, the government's going to ban it and think you've done a good thing. Just like the war on poverty. Yes, poverty's bad. So the government declares war on poverty, and now we have a lot more poor people because of these programs. You know, like the Department of Energy, they put the Department of Energy in and say, hey, we depend on foreign oil. Let's have this Department of Energy so we don't depend on foreign oil. 30, 40 years later, we're spending $30 billion a year, and we're twice as dependent on foreign oil now as we were when they put the program in. Government is full of good intentions, and all they've done is pave the road to hell, and that is where we're going right now. And I want to go to the United States Senate if you guys will send me there and do my best to put a stop to it. And it isn't going to be easy, because there's a lot of momentum. And I'm going to be walking into the lion's den, because these politicians in Washington, all they care about is getting reelected. And that means denying these problems and postponing them. I want to confront them now before they get any worse.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And here's some flyers. My website is shifforsenate.com. And my headquarters are in Milford, so feel free to contact us if you have any questions. I hope we can get your support in this coming convention. Because I'm the guy to beat Nick Blumenthal. And if I win, it actually makes a difference.
Thank you.
It's not going to be a hollow victory.